Trevor is a divorced man living alone in a small house in Hertfordshire. He's excited for his daughter Maddie and his ex, Jess, to come for Christmas. He's even bought presents, but Jess rings to say her boyfriend invited her and Maddie to his villa in Barbados, so they can't make Christmas, they'll meet for New Year instead. Trevor reluctantly accepts. Jess also says her boyfriend has offered to pay Maddie's college fees, so Trevor shouldn't worry. Wanting to save face, Trevor lies and says he already has the money and will pay. Just then a postman gives him a letter, a reminder about unpaid bills. He leaves Maddie a voice note saying he hopes she has an amazing time in Barbados and that he'll miss her. Trevor heads to St. Aldwyn Primary School where he works as a caretaker and helps teacher Diana get ready for the school's nativity play. While he's working, the head teacher stops him and asks for a quick word, but Diana rushes in to say that a mum, June, has agreed to bring her 8-month-old baby to be baby Jesus. The head smiles. In the staff room the head pours Trevor a glass of wine, thanks him for his help, and reminds him today is his last day at the school. When she asks how long he's worked there, Trevor says, 7 months. She replies, feels like years. The backroom bell rings. Trevor opens the door and finds a baby in a carrier. He looks for June but she's nowhere. With no choice he brings the baby in and settles him in the manger prop. The play starts and Trevor manages things backstage. While working he checks the college fees for Maddie, £9,000. His phone rings. The caller says he's Caesar from HR at Grupo del Sanchez Romero, the new parent company of House Sitter Deluxe where Trevor used to work. Caesar says the employee assigned to a premium house sit in London pulled out at the last minute and asks if Trevor can cover it over Christmas. Trevor says he's not interested. Caesar then says the job pays £10,000. Startled, Trevor drops a star prop onto the stage mid-performance and quickly agrees. Caesar says there'll be an interview at the house that evening at 5 p.m. As Trevor locks up the school he hears a baby crying. He follows the sound and finds the same baby again. He looks for June's number and calls, but it goes to voicemail, so he leaves a message. He decides to take the baby to June's house, but when she answers she says her baby actually has a cold and she never dropped him off at school. Frustrated, Trevor calls the head to explain. The head says she'll message the parents' WhatsApp group and ends the call. Trevor rings the police and reports someone left a baby at his school. The officer says they'll get back in 3 to 4 hours because of bad weather. Trevor says he needs to be in London by 5 p.m., so the officer suggests calling social services, who can arrive faster. Trevor phones social services and an agent agrees to pick up the baby. Trevor gives his address and starts packing for London. The social worker arrives, but when Trevor turns to hand over the baby is gone. Panic. He searches the house shouting, "Baby Jesus!" The agent thinks Trevor is mad, tells him to call when he finds the baby, leaves his card and goes. Trevor hears the baby cooing and finds him, but it's too late, the agent's number goes to voicemail. Desperate, Trevor drives to the social services office, but it's closed for Christmas. He calls the police again, but reception is poor, his phone dies mid-call and the police only get his last name. With no options, Trevor decides to take the baby to London with him. Trevor finally arrives at the house sit. He rings the intercom and quickly hides the baby. The woman at the speaker says she'll be right down. Before she comes he slips the baby into his backpack. The woman introduces herself as Petra, executive concierge for the Schwarzenbachs. She explains their housekeeper Janet would normally be there but had a family emergency. Trevor slowly walks backward so Petra won't spot the baby in his bag. In the lift Petra gives him a small fob used to access the penthouse, other floors don't need it. The baby makes a soft coo and Trevor awkwardly copies the sound to make it seem like it came from him. At the penthouse Petra explains this is the Schwarzenbach's London home and they haven't spent Christmas here in nearly 10 years. The baby whimpers, so Trevor tiptoes to soothe him. Petra thinks Trevor is odd and tells him to put his bag down so she can show him around. Trevor puts the bag outside the door and follows her, not listening properly. He spots the baby crawling across the hallway. He's escaped the bag. Petra continues with house rules and says absolutely no guests are allowed. Trevor nods stiffly. As she tours, Trevor panics and hides the baby's bottle inside a decorative pot. The bottle clangs loudly. Petra pauses. Trevor nervously comments on the pot. He keeps looking for the baby and hears another coo, finds him just as Petra calls his name, scoops him up and hides him in an empty storage bin. Petra continues, showing where the kitchen utensils are. In the living room she asks if Trevor has any questions. Trevor asks if he got the job. Petra says yes and warns him not to lose the fob, only she and the cleaner Elsa have copies. She hands him her card. Trevor asks if anyone will be coming to the penthouse for Christmas. Petra answers, no, all the staff are on holiday. Once Petra leaves, Trevor charges his phone, picks up a remote and presses a button. Outside, a big decorative statue starts moving. He then hears the baby and takes him from the bin. His phone rings. It's the Hertfordshire police. Trevor explains he's in London and they say that's out of their area and they'll inform the Met. Trevor takes the baby out of hiding and is hit by a terrible smell. The baby needs a nappy change. He searches the penthouse and in the master bedroom finds silk scarves and some clips. He improvises a nappy out of those. The baby gets fussy again and is hungry. Trevor finds the bottle he hid and feeds him, but the feed finishes quickly. With nothing else, Trevor runs to a nearby supermarket and buys baby food and milk. While leaving, his phone rings. Georgia from Westminster Social Services, saying the police forwarded Trevor's report. Trevor asks when she'll collect the baby. Georgia says, tomorrow, we're extremely busy right now. Trevor sighs, disappointed, and goes back to the penthouse. Back at the penthouse, the baby refuses to eat and smells foul again, so Trevor changes him. The baby yawns. Trevor gets him to sleep and lies down too. Around midnight the baby cries again. Trevor rocks, pats and hums, but the crying continues. Eventually the baby burps and smiles. Trevor puts him back in the basket, but the moment he steps away the baby cries again. Desperate, Trevor uses a wine cork as a makeshift soother. The next morning Trevor notices he only has one scarf left and decides to order proper nappies immediately. Minutes later a delivery man arrives. Trevor fumbles with the intercom and the man leaves. Trevor rushes down in the lift, catches him outside, explains he ordered the nappies and collects them, then realizes he left the fob upstairs. Meanwhile, the baby inside the penthouse starts climbing the stairs. Panicking, Trevor goes to the main desk and pulls out the building's employee records to find Elsa the cleaner, who also has a fob. He reaches for his pocket to call her, but his phone is upstairs. A resident enters the lobby. Trevor explains he's house-sitting for the Schwarzenbachs and asks to borrow the resident's phone. The man reluctantly hands it over. Trevor calls Elsa, explains, and Elsa says she needs Petra's okay first. If Petra approves, she'll bring the fob. Trevor agrees and returns the phone. The resident, Lionel, tells Trevor he might as well come upstairs and wait in his flat. Lionel says he dislikes Mr. Schwarzenbach, who bought the building 3 years ago and pushed out long-term residents. Tomorrow is Lionel's last day here. After what feels like an hour, Elsa calls to say Petra approved and she's on her way. Georgia from Social Services arrives at the penthouse and calls Trevor, but he doesn't answer. She leaves a message asking him to call back. Inside, the baby has climbed to the top of the stairs. 30 minutes later Elsa arrives and unlocks the penthouse level. As the elevator doors start to close, Trevor sees the nappies outside. He wedges his shoe to stop the door, grabs the nappies, but the door snaps his shoe. He runs outside to find Elsa and eventually gets back in. Inside, the baby shoots out of the laundry chute and Trevor catches him just in time. That night Trevor leaves Georgia a voicemail apologizing for missing her call and asking when she can collect the baby. Just as he's about to sleep his phone rings. It's Maddie. Trevor asks if she's in Barbados but she says their flight was delayed and she misses him. Trevor says he misses her too. Later he hears noises downstairs and finds a couple rummaging in the kitchen. Trevor asks how they got in. The woman says they found a fob in the basement and have been living down there since their flat was repossessed. As they leave, Trevor tells them he has a baby who isn't his and gives them some of the baby food he bought. The next morning the baby cries and Trevor feeds him. Georgia calls to say she can collect the baby that afternoon. Trevor notices his missing shoe and improvises by wearing a plastic bag on one foot. While walking with the baby he meets a group of mothers who coo over the child and ask his age. Trevor hesitates and says, 3 months. One woman raises an eyebrow, he's huge for 3 months. Trevor says, you should see his mother, then awkwardly moves on. He spots his real shoe in the street, hurries to put it on, and a dog grabs it. Trevor throws a stick, but it doesn't work. In desperation he throws his other shoe. The dog turns out to belong to a building resident. Later, the basement couple visit to thank Trevor for the food and give him a small knitted hat for the baby, explaining they're off to a housing interview and might finally get a home. Trevor offers to watch their baby while they're gone and they gratefully accept. He looks after both babies, feeds them and settles each in a basket. An hour later Georgia arrives. Trevor grabs a basket and gives her a baby. Georgia takes a photo for records and has him sign a form. After Georgia leaves, Trevor sees the couple return, excited that they might get housing. Trevor gives them their baby back, and they scream, "That's not our baby." Trevor panics and bolts downstairs to catch Georgia. Trevor calls her repeatedly but she doesn't hear him. In desperation he grabs the baby from her car and asks the officer to tell Georgia to wait while he fetches the right baby. He runs back upstairs but loses his fob. Then he remembers the spare the couple gave him earlier and uses it to re-enter, returning their real baby. They ask where he put their child. Trevor says he tried to give him to social services. He races to the parking area but Georgia has already driven off. He calls her, it goes to voicemail. Then Petra rings panicked, the Schwarzenbachs are coming to London for Christmas. Petra says she's in Thailand but reached Janet, who lives nearby and will do the preparations. Once Janet arrives Trevor will be dismissed with full pay. Minutes later Janet phones and admits she's actually in Scotland on holiday. She lied to Petra. She promises to catch a train and be there tonight, and asks Trevor for a favor. There's a credit card in the kitchen office drawer. Please start shopping for Christmas supplies. Meanwhile Georgia realizes the baby she collected is missing and calls the police. At the supermarket Trevor loads his cart with food, condiments and treats for the big Christmas feast he now has to prepare. About an hour later he finishes shopping and tries Georgia again, but she doesn't answer. He goes to the basement, gives the couple some chocolate and a bottle of wine. Then he sees his missing shoe on a counter, slips it on and the dog chases after it into the elevator. Trevor writes his number on paper and tapes it next to the elevator. Trevor brings the dog back to the penthouse but it causes chaos, chewing through groceries. He uses the fob to lure it away but the dog swallows the fob. Trevor scoops the dog and checks the elevator panel. Luckily the fob still works. His phone rings. Janet says all trains were fully booked so she bought an overnight sleeper ticket and can't make it. She asks him to decorate the tree and promises someone will deliver it. Then the dog's owner calls, Annabelle, and Trevor says he'll be back in maybe 2 or 3 hours. An hour later the Christmas tree is delivered and Trevor assembles and decorates it cleverly. He takes the dog for a walk. The dog finally poops and Trevor finds a poop bag on its collar to use. When the elevator opens Annabelle is there. She thanks him and gets off at her floor. Trevor presses the penthouse button using the poop bag and returns upstairs. The next morning Janet calls again to say she can't make it after all and Trevor will have to cook the Christmas meal for 12 or 13 people. She sends him all the recipes. Trevor starts cooking and, surprisingly, moves through the complicated feast smoothly. He finishes the dinner and waits by the elevator as evening falls. Hours pass. Janet doesn't answer and Petra tells Trevor the family decided not to come and that she forgot to tell Janet. Petra asks Trevor to pass on her apology and hangs up. Moments later the intercom buzzes, the police asking if he has a missing baby because the child was last seen in his care. Trevor says yes and brings the baby downstairs, but the officer compares the baby to George's photo and they don't match. Trevor explains the whole mad situation. The officer lets Trevor take the baby back upstairs to wait for Georgia. Trevor feeds the baby and pours the officer a glass of wine. The intercom buzzes again, the basement couple bringing Trevor a Christmas present. He invites them to stay for dinner. Lionel buzzes up too. Petra asked him to bring Trevor his apartment key since he's moving out. Annabelle steps out of the elevator with Lionel. Trevor invites Lionel and Annabelle to stay for dinner as well. Then Jess rings. She says they missed their connecting flight because of the delay and Trevor tells her and Maddie to come to the penthouse. He even calls Georgia. Soon the penthouse fills with a lively Christmas crowd. Laughter, guests, and the feast Trevor made fill the rooms. Jess and Maddie arrive amazed. Everyone gathers and sits down to eat. Moments later the police officer raises a glass and toasts Trevor and the baby who, in a strange way, brought them together. Suddenly they notice the baby is missing. A frantic search follows. Finally they find him lying peacefully in the manger display beneath the baby Jesus decoration. At that moment the intercom buzzes. Trevor answers and freezes. It's the Schwarzenbox.